So, how can you reduce the stress in your life? Well, a lot of that really just comes down to knowing thyself. So, what is that really at the end of the day? It is getting clear about what things in your life stress you out. So, what I would say to you is get a piece of paper and just make a list of the different things that you struggle to deal with or to get through or experience overall. And when you get kind of clear about something, then you're at least acknowledging where your triggers and failure points can kind of stem from. And then from there, when you're sober, you will be able to better navigate an understanding of how to move yourself in your life in such a way that keeps you out of highly stressful events, or at least minimizes the significance of the stress in your life. So when you write those things down and you get very clear on it, now you have something that is tangible. You can hold it in your hand, you could put it on the mirror, you can add this to different parts of your apartment or house, or even in the car to help remind yourself of what things in your environment, in your day-to-day life or existence, is something that will stress you out and affect you. That could be all kinds of different things. And that's where you really need to take a moment in a sober state and really reflect what things in your life cause you to struggle. And writing those things down is really the first step to staying sober in the long term. Now, the issue that I think a lot of people run into is that they go out and they try to quit marijuana cold turkey. They go about their life and then they run into things that cause stress. Those things start to stack. They do their best to get through that while also experiencing withdrawal symptoms and just other life hurdles. It could just be a passing of a loved one. They might lose their job. There's relationship stuff that sometimes they deal with. And because of that, they often find themselves getting to such an overwhelmed state that they say, you know what? It's actually far better for me to be high than for me to be this stressed out in my life. So one way that you can kind of further your chances of succeeding on being sober on your own is to really get a clear understanding of how you need to start living your life in such a way that reduces the amount of stress in your life. That could be managing the distance between you and certain people that you may have on your inner circle. It may mean that you talk less on your job. It may mean that you set more boundaries and become more vocal. It may mean that you start, avoiding certain streets that remind you of certain things that can cause anxiety, whether it was, the fact that you're driving past a dispensary or, the first girlfriend you ever had and you don't really want to think about that. So it can really range for anybody. It's not just a one size fits all. And so making this list and then trying to find a way to live your life that avoids the very things that stress you out will help you, because life is going to have stressful things that happen regardless of how much you try and avoid those outcomes. Because there are certain things in our lives that are just outside of our control. There are things that just happen in life and it can affect us and our overall sense of well-being. So that could be, again, you lose your job. That could be you got a flat tire and now you got your first write-up on your job because you were running late. It's all kinds of numerous things. So if I was to give you some tips here that would also maybe benefit you, is if you're watching the news, I suggest that you at least get away from watching the news. The news is very good at creating a anxiety state in a lot of people. It's a lot of negativity and doom and gloom, especially with these elections and stuff coming up. There's a lot of emotion in a lot of people when it comes to how this election will go. Versus some people are able to just cast their vote and accept that they did their part or did the best that they could do. And then just what happens from there is what happens. So by kind of getting your life situated in a way that reduces stress can be beneficial. So remove the news. I would remove people that do not respect you from your life. It doesn't need to be permanent. You can kind of put that relationship to the side until you feel like you're able to approach it, or you may just need to minimize the exposure. Another thing I would say is just avoid, the doom scrolling on your phone. One, that can affect your dopamine levels. Two, a lot of the stuff on there is really not contributing to your overall well-being. There's some stuff that's nice to watch. It might make you laugh, and that's great. And then there's some things that will not make you laugh, that are a little bit more, emotionally based and triggering. So just avoid those things, and you'll notice a vast shift within yourself when it comes to tolerance and your ability to handle difficult things in your life. And so that's just some of the ways that you can kind of navigate your life a little bit more clearly if you're trying to stay sober. At the same time, for a lot of people, even after you've made this list and you've approached your life in such a way to reduce stress, they still have a very low tolerance. They're not really good at dealing with either their internal experience or their external experience. And so that's kind of where I come in as a professional, as I help people with those types of issues. They're usually more subconscious in nature, because if most people knew how to deal with anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, you name it, they would just deal with it and they wouldn't choose to experience it. So what that really means is a lot of people are not choosing to feel depressed. They're not choosing to have anxiety. They're not choosing to have these negative internal feelings or externally be triggered by certain things that also cause them to have internal feelings. And so they are kind of going through a really difficult experience. And they have tried a lot of different things to cope. And that's usually why they've turned to marijuana, is they weren't able to find what it is in their life that they needed to do to resolve that anxiety, to resolve that depression, to resolve that anger. And so that helplessness that they had really came down to, do I want to be on marijuana or some kind of pill, or go see somebody that's going to talk to me about my issues for the next 12 years of my life, and I funnel more money into that as well. So if you actually want to be done with this issue, you have to get to the root of it, because what you're addressing is kind of like the tree branches. It's out there in the open, it's exposed, it's something that you can visually lock into and say, you know what, maybe I need to be exercising more. Maybe I need to change this. Maybe I need to address this aspect in my life. But the roots of a tree are usually under the surface. They're not something that's seen by the eye. And if it is, it's very minimal in nature. So if you can't see something and you can't attack it at the roots, that system, no matter how much you deal with these branches and trim them back, they're going to grow back out. They're going to continue to be a theme in your life. And that's how you'll know that you didn't get to the root cause. You didn't get underneath your conscious awareness of what the problem is. Because if you knew, you would do something about it and you wouldn't struggle with it anymore. So if that's something that you're struggling with, is finding out exactly why you're still struggling with depression or anxiety or self-advocacy or whatever it is, or at least what you think it is, reach out to me. I'll be more than glad to help you out with this.